Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Steel City Insider podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jeremy Hritz, alongside publisher of the Steel City Insider, Mr. Jim Wexell. And today we have Mike DeFabo of The Athletic joining us, along with Bo Marchionte from College to Pro Sports. And before we dive in here, I want to talk about a tremendous accomplishment by our man, Bo here, who completed a 10,000-day running streak. And I just did a little research here, and this would just be based on running 3 miles each of those days. That would cover the circumference of the earth plus 5,000 miles. And you did way more than that, Bo. Yeah. You could have run from New York to LA over 10 times. And you burned over 3 million calories, which is about the equivalent of 8,500 Big Macs.
Well, I think I've eaten 120,000 Big Mac. That's why I still got baby fat around my belly.
Hey, congratulations. Tell us a little bit about that. That's a huge accomplishment.
We were talking prior to coming on live. Just blessed. I know it's a cliche thing to say, but very fortunate. I never expected it to develop into what it was when I started back in 98. I was just hoping to maybe go a month. The idea was to surpass Ripken, because at the time, Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak was a big thing in sports, and that kind of gave me the idea. And 5,000 days came, and then 10 years came, and then 20 years came, 25 years came, and then eventually the 10,000 number, which I'm very excited about. A lot of milestone numbers throughout it. This one in particular, I was really excited about and fortunate enough to make it. And hopefully we can continue. And people always ask me, do I want to quit? I do not want to quit. And the day, at least right now in my mind, the day if it ends, it's going to be sad. So let's keep it going. And thank you for addressing it.
Oh, your minimum is 3 miles, but what are you ranked? 75th in the world or something?
Yeah, it's 75th in the world in terms of running streak days.
Yeah, but that streak is all for people that just jog at least a mile a day.
Yeah, I think for that run streak registry, you have to run at least a mile a day for it to be considered a counted day. Unfortunately, I haven't had to reach that point yet. I've been fortunate enough to be able to do my 3 miles, but again, I like to do 6 to 8 to 10 a day, depending on, I think the stretch in Montreal, the 3 days I was there, I think I averaged like a half marathon every day. So it's just, you get those big chunk days where you go 13, 10, 15, and then maybe you do a 6, a 3, another 10 and 8 before.
The other thing I think you should be congratulated for is the charity money. You raised 10 grand. You've jogged 10,000 miles. That's a hell of an accomplishment, but so is raising $10,000 for charity. That's awesome. What were the charities again?
We created a scholarship at Niles McKinley High School for the cross-country team under my name, and it'll be split equal 50-50. That was the one we created. And then Rock for Reason is a nonprofit in Trumbull, Mahoning County, Ohio. And they deal with terminally ill people with cancer. And they're people, the nonprofit are people that we know. They're good people, and it's a good cause. And Jim was there signing books for charity as well. That 10,000 number that we reached, Jim was a big part of that as well.
Not a big part.
Hey man, you got rid of a lot of books. So like I said, your hand was in the pile as much as anybody, and I appreciate it.
But it's funny, Bo is in the media corps there that covers the Steelers. And whenever I introduce you to something like that time we went in for pizza and Bruner was there and a couple other scouts, and we walked over and I told them, hey, you know what this guy's done? They're always amazed. That's more athletic probably than anything they've done. 10,000 days in a row. So anyway, on to football.
And 10,000 days in a row, that's how long we've been waiting for Aaron Rodgers too. So the streaks match up.
That was masterful. That was a masterful segue here, because the Steelers are in OTAs. They started on the 27th. They're going to wrap up tomorrow, their first set, and then it's June 3rd through the 5th. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, no show, but doesn't really matter.
We can hear everybody's perspective on this. I'm in the camp that it does matter. And here's my point of view on this. You only get limited on-field opportunities to work with your receiving core. And if there's anybody who should understand the importance of continuity and chemistry, it's Aaron Rodgers, because he essentially played general manager when he was with the Jets. He wanted them to trade for his preferred guys that he had years of familiarity with, and guys who knew how to run the detailed routes exactly the way that he wanted, guys who know all his complicated hand signals. you can't just make up for that lost time. The only way that you're going to build that familiarity is actually getting on the field with your teammates. So Aaron Rodgers, none of this, he owes the Steelers nothing right now. Contractually, he's not obligated to be here because obviously he hasn't signed. Even if he did sign, it's optional. But it's also optional to make the playoffs, to win a playoff game, to have a competent passing offense, all things the Steelers haven't done. So if they're trying to do something that they haven't done in 8 years now, which is win a playoff game, it's going to take a different level of commitment. And I sure think that having your quarterback there not only helps build that, but also sets a standard that we're here to work. And if the most important person on your team's not there, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the team?
I echo what Mike says. I think it's a great point. And Aaron, we know, is legendary as for MVPs and his talented play at the quarterback position. But I think it's imperative, like Michael said, that he's there. And it just, Cam Hayward touched and we backtracked a little bit on it. We know Cam's word. If you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, you're going to be here. This is part of the culture that they created. And I think this is a weird spot for the Steelers. You think that we're in OTAs and the quarterback position isn't settled. I think we all believe that Aaron Rodgers is eventually going to sign. I have no faith in Mason Rudolph being able to carry this team. He's never proven that. We have a 3-0 record 2 years ago, and then he was 1-4 last year with the Titans. 28 touchdowns, I think 20 interceptions. So he's just not the answer. And I think it's a wishful thinking. It's a lot to grasp. If you're a Steelers faithful, that you think Mason Rudolph could be the guy if some perhaps strange circumstance Rodgers isn't there. And then you got to hope that he remains in one piece and lasts a 17-game schedule.
But here's what I have to say to those who say the Steelers are embarrassing themselves.
Man.
Who better? Okay. Who would you have wanted at the beginning of free agency?
I would have
Justin
wanted
Fields?
Justin Fields. I think it would have been reasonable because
Yeah, I know. It would have been reasonable. I know. And a reasonable at a price. And you say, okay, this is the guy I want, but at 20,000, because really, we benched him last year. He couldn't even set the blocking.
What Justin Fields is making is $20 million per year. There's 19 quarterbacks who make more than that. This is a $40 million a year league at quarterback position, and he's making half of that. It's essentially QB2 plus money. And virtually, like, the only starting quarterbacks who are making less than him are guys on their rookie contract. So I would have, if I were GM, at the end of the year, I would have said, what do we have to do to get this done, Justin? And I would have gotten it done, had him be your starting quarterback this year. And then it seems they want to draft a quarterback in 2026. You draft your quarterback in 2026. Justin Fields can still start that season and provide the bridge to the future. That's the route I would have gone, but obviously they're in a different direction and a very different place now than that.
See, I'm watching Mason float the ball around practice. He clearly the best quarterback out there. Howard came back from a really bad day and had a decent day today. But he is third string right now. He's going to be third string all year. And let him grow. People saying that this is a competition between him and Mason are crazy. Mason's clearly the best quarterback out there. And I actually thought he might have been the best option for them at the beginning of free agency. Justin Fields is okay for his potential. But those guys coached him. They know better than we do, even what he knows and what he doesn't. So
$20 million he got, Jim. I think that speaks volumes.
No, he got 30 mil, didn't he?
It was $20 million per year and $30 million guaranteed over the 2 years.
I thought the Steelers offered him 20 mil. 20 mil a year, and he got 30 mil a year, right?
20 mil a year is what he got. He got 2 years, 40 million total with 30 million guaranteed.
Okay.
So what's the time?
The only available quarterback better than Mason Rudolph, I thought. You could have your Sam Darnolds. You can have all those guys, especially Kirk Cousins. Jeez. They played against him. We all saw him. Come on. Not going to trade for him. But I just think Aaron Rodgers is better than Mason. And if not Aaron Rodgers, then Mason's the next best guy, in my opinion. So it really doesn't matter. But I agree with Mike's point that it will help your team if you're in minicamp as a quarterback.
So just jumping in there, in terms of the timeline, does it get to the point where it becomes too late for him to be effective during the season? Rodgers?
It seems to me that the Steelers are comfortable or they're willing to be patient through this process. To me, it's like they're pot committed in a game of poker. Like you already have so much invested in this. You've already gone down this path so far. Why not, even if it's not the way you would like it, continue to wait it out? Like I don't imagine the Steelers now that this being a make or break week or 2 week or 3 week stretch for them. I think that they're content to say, look, we would love to have this guy here, right now. We'd love to have him here for mini camp when it's supposedly mandatory. But if he doesn't come, we're also willing to sign him afterwards and just have him come into training camp.
I do think I raised an eyebrow when they didn't have anybody come to the screen, stand in front of a screen to be interviewed. They almost always, when they're coming off the field, they have somebody stand in front of the screen. And if it's quarterback day, it's the starting quarterback. When they didn't give Mason the screen, allow him to have a big mob interview worthy of a starting quarterback, it looked to me like they had already agreed. They know what's going to happen. They don't want to pretend and make a show to Aaron Rodgers. Hey, look, we'll move on without you. It seems to me that there's an agreement in place.
Yeah.
And the other thing, why is this, Mike, have you found out why this OTA season has been truncated a week?
I think that a bit suspicious as well.
Yeah.
It made me kind of wonder,
Yeah.
put my tinfoil hat and wonder, did they know that he wasn't going to be here and they didn't want the questions to linger for an extra week? Maybe you cut a week off of it. The other explanation for it is you look at the way that the league has evolved and players do prefer to work out with their own individual position coaches in the city where they live. I can understand that there is some value in that. And I think guys can get just as much out of it. But there's also, I think, value in working alongside your teammates, especially when you're the quarterback and 10 other people are depending upon you every single play.
And I think for
anyone
Rodgers,
I'm sorry, Bo.
no, we all want Rodgers here if that's going to be the end case scenario. I remember Tomlin spoke years ago about Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger and jokingly saying that they don't have to practice. They do, but not to the level that everybody else has. They could step on a field any day. And I think of Justin Herbert. I think Tyrod Taylor was a starter in San Diego at the time. The shot goes bad, and then Justin Herbert's thrown during a COVID season where there was a lot of non-activity. He's getting backup reps, and Justin Herbert's thrown in there. So I think him getting acclimated, it's going to be quick, and the Steelers know that. He is Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be able to adapt, and you think he's almost a mathematician wizard when it comes to understanding the X's and O's of the game. And I think there's some similarities with him and Arthur Smith. But I think culturally, you want the franchise quarterback, you want the face of the franchise of the organization that's on the field to be in-house OTAs and feel committed. But I do agree with you guys, and I think the hours he spent on the south side of the facility, there's an agreement in place. I think that's why Omar Khan said at one point during the meetings or some presser we had that there would be 4 quarterbacks by the time they got to Latrobe or training camp. So they got 3, and obviously Rodgers would make 4.
Is there anyone not rooting for Mason, though?
He's just
I
not.
was trying to get Jalen Warren's attention as he was going in the weightlifting room, the other room. And I get this tap on my back. I turn around. There's a fist. Wants a fist bump Mason. He goes, "How you been?" Like, man, quarterbacks don't act that way. Stop being a regular dude.
It's true. I think it's interesting because there have been a number of times where you could, from the outside, question whether Mason got a fair chance, especially after he was benched and then ended up tumbling down the depth chart. They bring in Mitch Trubisky, they draft Kenny. All of a sudden, he's quarterback 3. During that training camp, I don't know that he had any opportunity to change his position on the depth chart, and he stuck there for a couple years. So I really feel like this is setting the stage for another big middle finger to Mason Rudolph, that he's going to lead the Steelers through OTAs and minicamp. And hey, maybe you'll be the starter and you better prepare like it because you know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. And in comes the 4-time MVP and Super Bowl champion, ready to claim quarterback 1 and start taking those first team reps. And once again, it's Mason Rudolph getting the middle finger to Rudolph.
But it's a long season. It's a long season.
And that's right. Mason does need to be ready to play because there's been this whole argument. Aaron Rodgers was coming off of torn Achilles. He had reported hamstring and knee injuries, so he should be healthier. What's to guarantee that a guy who's now 41 years old, all those miles on your tires, I'm sure that those add up. And
Yeah.
same thing, just because it's a new season doesn't mean that this old guy is going to be healthy. I think that you very much should prepare for the possibility that the old guy gets hurt, because that's what happens to veteran players at this stage in their career.
I tell you what, it'll make for one hell of a narrative if Mason does come in there. He's probably got a chip on his shoulder that's 10 times bigger than it was, and he goes out there and has a storybook finish. That would be fun. But let's talk about some of the players who were actually at OTAs, and I see a lot of headlines out there today about some of the players, their appearance, how they're looking. One of them being Broderick Jones, who looks a bit svelte.
Yeah, so we talked to Broderick today, and actually I was sitting on the sideline with Wex, and I was saying, doesn't Broderick look a little leaner to you? And we asked Broderick about it, and he said that he dropped about 20 pounds. So he played last season at about 325, 330. Now he's around 305, 310. And I think that's important, because coming out of college, one of the biggest strengths that Broderick Jones had was he has very good feet. He was a very mobile offensive lineman. And you saw it in a number of different schemes. Like when he was getting it out into space, when he was getting to that second level to block guys, you saw that mobility. And I think he took a step back in that department last year. So by losing this weight, I think that he's back to being the explosive athlete that made him a first-round pick in the first place, because he ran the fastest 40 of any offensive lineman during his draft class. That's what he does. And if you put on some bad weight, you no longer have your strength. So I think that's really significant for him. And now he's also, because of Troy Falatanu coming back from his injury, Broderick will finally have the opportunity to play left tackle. And the inevitable evolution of this offensive line is finally taking place, where you have those two first-round picks as your bookends on the offensive line.
And speaking of thought, I'm butcher this one too. And Jim, you helped me with this one last year. Falatanu. Seems that he has overcome that injury and he's ready to get back out there in a healthy status.
They still shoot Dylan Cook in there every now and then. They're not giving him, they're easing him to a degree.
Yeah,
But he, in his mind, he's happy. He's 100%, he says, in my mind. But there's a bit of a way to go.
Yeah, I talked to him today as well, Wex. I know you had a good story on him a couple days ago, but we were both impressed by his maturity and his makeup. Every time you talk to him, he really carries himself very well. And he was talking about how he was feeling this pressure, like, am I going to get back? Am I going to be able to help the team? And that's what you want out of somebody. This is a guy that obviously has the right approach. And I think that he has the right makeup and the right physical skill set to be an impactful player. And really, it's time for that offensive line to start showing itself. Like when Omar Khan kept investing in the offensive line, it's like putting money in the bank. You don't have something shiny to show for. You don't have a brand new watch or a brand new piece of clothing. But the hope is in a couple years, you're going to get that return on investment. You're going to be happy you made it. Now, here we are 3 years into the Omar Khan era. And this hope of having a great offensive line needs to be, we need proof of it. And we need to see this offensive line not only be just like some unscratched lottery ticket, but actually the reason why the Steelers are winning games late in the season. And it's going to take those first-round picks, especially, proving it.
It's going to be that $1 million ticket you bought in Greensburg the other day, Mike.
Wex, I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I did that. You'd never see me again.
And I hate to keep talking about the physical stature of players and growth from one year to the next, but it was also reported too, Brooke Pryor observed about Roman Wilson looking a little bigger.
I would agree with
Really?
that. I thought he
Maybe just a little better put together, maybe a couple pounds of muscle on him, but I think he is in very good shape. And he really, I think, is the X factor for this wide receiver room, because when they drafted him in the third round, they were looking forward to his potential, especially over the middle of the field. And when he gave them absolutely nothing last year, we saw what happened. We all throughout the year, we were asking, like, who's going to finally step up as the number 2 wide receiver? And then even more so when George Pickens went down with an injury, what do you do when your number 1 is down? Do you really trust Calvin Austin or Roman or Van Jefferson last year to be that number one guy. So if Roman can hit the ground running and have a very productive second season like Calvin Austin did after losing his first year, you're going to feel a lot differently about the wide receiver room than you would if he has a season like last year where he was underwhelming and disappointing.
Yeah, Roman has to have a big year. I think they're actually going to invest in an off-season trade or acquire another guy. I don't think you can go into a season realistically like last year. We had George Pickens, Roman goes down, Calvin Austin isn't a strong two, and then you got Vance Jefferson, you got Allen Robinson, then you got a Robert Woods type. He's 33, 200 yards last year total. I think it's a big concern. And I just think we see that all the NFL is you have to have elite weapons, not just good weapons. You have to have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You got to have an arsenal. And I think receiver-wise, I just think their core is lacking even. But I agree that Roman, if he can have a spectacular spring and through Latrobe and really blossom into a guy, maybe they have something. But I think we're going to spend the summer like a Brandon Ayuk watch, rating up. Are they going to get Romeo Doubs off the Packers or some other receiver that teams are going to dangle out there for the Steelers to try to get?
All right. While you're on the Brandon Ayuk watch, I'm on the Brandon Johnson watch. Did you see that play he made today? It was the best play by a wide receiver I saw today.
Yeah, he's a good receiver in Denver.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, last year, he did he dressed as Jamar Chase for that second Bengals game the week of practice. He burned Porter a couple times. And I talked to him. I didn't know who he was. I just saw the penny. And I walked up to him in the locker room. I says, "Hey, who played Jamar Chase today?" And he goes, "Me." I said, "You look good. You look like him." So he remembered me from that. And I saw that play today, and I've liked him. I think he's a long shot for that Pickens position. The other guy I wanted to talk to was Woods. And while you guys were mobbing, I think it was Skylar Thompson or something, those two were walking off the field, and Woods was intent. He was teaching them something. And Brandon was just shaking. I didn't know which was. I went with Woods first because Woods turned on the Jets today, man. He still has his wheels. And he knew exactly what play I was talking about. He goes, "Yeah, I put that on tape. I needed that." People think I've lost my wheels. I haven't. And so I asked him about Brandon Johnson. He said, "I like him too." Those are the two guys I'm interested in for that spot. Roman Wilson. I'll let you guys watch Roman Wilson. And I like Calvin, but he's so small.
Yeah.
And Wilson just doesn't look much bigger to me at all.
Yeah. I think he looks a little.
Okay.
I think he looks a little sturdier if that's the case. He looked a little frail and thin.
Yeah.
How about the rookie defensive lineman? I know, again, you can't really see much football in shorts, but Harmon and Black Jim, proud of me there. I wrote that down. How they look.
I think that Derek Harmon is exactly what they need because he played in an odd front. He's used to playing the exact position that he's going to be playing. And he has the tremendous mentor in Cameron Hayward to work with. And one thing that I think the Steelers should be excited about is his pass rush potential. I think he led all college football interior defensive linemen with 55 pressures last year. And Mike Tomlin often talks about how the league has evolved where you're in your sub packages about 80% of the time. And what that means for the Steelers is you're going to have just two interior defensive linemen along with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And so you need some push and some pressure out of those interior guys. And if you have a guy that has proven he can do it at the college level, that makes him a potential candidate to be a 3-down contributor right away. And I think that really just fits what Omar Khan is building with his emphasis in the trenches and also this need both in the short and longer term to address the defensive line.
Bo, what do you got for us, man?
Why Black, watching his, I was actually going over some of it. I thought we might talk about him because he's a guy I like coming out. 5th rounder, but I think he has a good motor. I like his hustle. He needs to do a better job of getting off blocks, but that's ticky-tacky scout talk, if you will. But I think he could develop and to be a contributor. And I think for the Steelers, I think all hands on deck because I think, as Mike mentioned, with Harmon and Benton and Hayward up front, it's a nice core, but we know Cam's at the end, and you're going to have guys stepping up as quick as possible. I like him, but I think it's a fifth rounder. You got to be excited about his upside. And again, I'm not talking Pro Bowl caliber guy, but I think if he can be a contributor on this team and enter a second contract somewhere, I think he can develop into that type of prospect.
If he develops too, then you may have the future defensive line in place because he has some positional versatility, but I think he makes most sense as a nose. So let's say that in 2 years, he develops into a guy that you say we would feel comfortable on 25% of the snaps, having him out there as our nose. Then you can move Keanu Benton over to the 4-eye, and you've got Derek Harmon. So now you've got 3 young guys in place. Now we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. And I could very much see the Steelers in the next couple of drafts, again, targeting the defensive line in some form or fashion. But I think that's like that would be the most optimistic way to view Y.A. Black is this year, maybe a rotational type of contributor, situational contributor. Down the line, if he can become more than that, then that would be really kind of shore up their defensive line of the future.
And that's really been the whole approach with Omar and Andy Weidel. I always mess up his last name too, but to rebuild those lines, they started with the offensive line. Now they're addressing the defensive line. So it's following that pattern from Philadelphia. So we covered quite a bit here. Anything else we want to hit on from the first 2 days of OTAs or what you guys are looking ahead to?
It's funny is I had bookends in terms of the tackles, Harmon, Roman Wilson, and then the quarterbacks. It was funny. We at least we're on the same parallel. We touched base on all those. As OTAs go on for me, I'm just curious on Roman Wilson and his development. We're talking about a second-year kid that missed his rookie season. There's got to be upside there. The Steelers have a good draft history of picking receivers late. We know that. I will say that I didn't see anything last year during the spring that impressed me where I was awed or wowed. And hopefully that changes and he brings some excitement. And I'll also say, if he's listening, I hope he's a little bit more friendlier with us because we really have him in Pittsburgh.
Do you think he listens a lot? I think he's a big fan of the Steel City Insider podcast.
I hope so.
I think he's another hate the media guy. Anyway, let's talk about some sleepers. Mike, you see any sleepers?
I think it's interesting, a couple of these undrafted free agents. J.J. Galbraith is the tight end who wowed during his pro day. He put up numbers that would have been the tops of his position group if he had been invited to the combine. And so he has an athletic makeup and is more of like a receiving style of tight end. And we know that Arthur Smith loves the tight end position. Last year, they carried 4 routinely, an extra one because he loves having those 3 tight end personnel groupings. But really the question is, can he bump somebody out of their position? We know that they're going to have Pat Frymouth as one of their guys. We know they're going to have Darnell Washington featured a lot. And so what do you want out of the last 2? Is it just simply Connor Hayward and Donald Parham Jr.? Or can Galbraith bump one of those guys out? And so we'll have to wait and see. I think he's going to be a guy who's even though this is a position the Steelers highlight, I think he has his work cut out for him to make the team and especially be a contributor. And the other guy is the fullback. DJ Thomas Jones. And because Arthur Smith did
the fullback / tight end. He came here as a tight end. Go ahead.
So like Arthur Smith did feature the fullback in his offense a lot when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. I think about 25% of the snaps they had a fullback. But the reason why they were able to do that is because that guy contributed in other phases, special teams and so forth. So can this new guy carve out a niche for himself and also prove himself in other areas of the game in order to earn a roster spot? I think he would be another kind of sleeper guy to keep an eye on through training camp and through those couple preseason games.
I thought Galbraith, and I pointed that out to you, Mike, because we interviewed him at rookie minicamp, I believe. And he turned one up the field so fluidly, just the fluid hips. He didn't look like a tight end at all. A little bigger. He doesn't look like a tight end size-wise either, but he looks like a big wide receiver. But today he made another play, another really smooth, deep play. Bo, do you see any sleepers out there?
I don't know if he's a sleeper. The guy I want to see come to life because I just liked him during his collegiate days is Sebastian Castro, the safety nickel DB. It's not a fandom type situation, but he's just a guy I like college-wise, and now he's in Pittsburgh, and I hope he develops. I like his style, and again, but we know how it is. It's a numbers crunch and it's a big thing. I think best case scenario is practice squad, but even at that part, practice squad it is a bad thing. It's a good way to earn a living.
I thought he would get more a run as a nickel.
Yeah.
He's more of a deep guy and a dime backer to this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Nickels
and Beanie's kind of, I think Beanie's
Beanie. And number 5 moved up to take 34 to take Kent's place today. So yeah, they're looking at all different guys. I'm sure Castro will get his turn, but so far not what I expected. Yeah.
Well, we're talking guys on the fringe, on sleepers, but he's the one guy I'm just watching. And I think as time goes on, as we mentioned, Gabreth and all these guys will start to make plays. Just a la Beanie Bishop last year. You see these guys making plays, and then they keep making plays and keep making plays, and eventually they establish themselves. And I think we'll see guys do this over the next couple of weeks as we build towards Latrobe, and hopefully they carry that momentum. But I like the roster. I like the depth of it. At certain positions, obviously, it's you just got to hope that they stay healthy and they get the 4-time MVP here soon.
Yeah, they'll wrap up this week of OTAs tomorrow, and then it'll be June 3rd through the 5th, and then that mandatory minicamp will start on June 10th and then run through the 12th. Lots of stuff to talk about moving forward here, gentlemen. Anything to cover before we close out?
Well, you're going to have a party for your second 10,000th streak, right?
I'm going to be 80, Jim. So I don't know. That'll be a long ways away.
I'll be there.
I hope you're there. I hope we're all there, and we'll celebrate then. But yeah, and thanks again, guys, for the love and the invite onto the podcast. I love hearing your guys' insight. It's very knowledgeable as well.
And Bo, one more time, can you give us information on that scholarship, and we'll make sure we put that in the show notes just so the listeners can check that.
You know what? Can I send you the Venmo QV or a QR code or whatever?
Email it over to me.
If you could be out there, then there. And if, again, it goes toward 2 charities, we're just splitting it down the middle. Rock for Reason, nonprofit for cancer and terminally ill people in our area in Youngstown, Ohio, Mahoney and Trumbull County. And then a scholarship for our cross-country team that would be under my name. And again, for all those folks who gave and put their hand in the pile, tremendous thanks. Thank you so much.
All right. And that's
going to do a lot of Browns fans at that party, Bo.
No, dude, I love Scorching Browns fans. Real quick, when I wanted to address Jim's presence at the party, that he would be signing the books, and any money off the books went all towards the thing. And then I grabbed the mic back and I said, we tried to get a Cleveland Brown author here, but they were too stingy to come to the party and do it. And the Browns fans that I know, you gotta throw a dig. You gotta throw a dig. Of course I gotta throw a dig. That's why I'm here. Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. We'll have that information in the show notes. But Mike, Bo, thanks so much for being on, and we'll see you back here soon for another episode of the Steel City Insider Podcast. Gentlemen, have a great week.
See you boys tomorrow.
Later, gentlemen.
Take care.